Hey guys! So today we are answering a subscriber question, and the question in question is, Frederick, which language should I pick as a beginner if I want to make money? If I want to program for money. So let's get into it. Well, it kind of depends on what you mean by make money, because most languages will provide you with some type of income. I mean, it's great fun to program, but most of the people who do it for professionally do it for money in some fashion. It varies, of course, how important it is to you, but that's the way the world works, right? But in this scenario, we're most likely talking about two things. It's either stability, in other words, to secure a good income and have a relevancy so that you have that for, I mean, making some decent money a few times isn't going to help you if you can't consistently keep it up. And the other way of looking at it is, alright, you want to get rich. So let's start with the first one. The first one is to figure out, okay, what's going to be a good, stable choice long term for you if you're deciding to become a programmer and you want to just basically make pretty good money and be employed for a long time. Well, then the answer is going to be C#, Java, and JavaScript. The reason for that is simply because they are the languages that are in the highest demand in the world, and primarily they're also, which is even more important, is that they are the languages that are in highest demand by big corporations. And that is fairly significant because big corporations usually have the most amount of money, they hire the most amount of people in the world. There are even smaller companies, consultancies and so forth, agencies. There are companies who are just basically feeding off the size of the larger corporations, and this is exactly what they do. I mean, there's this entire consultancy world that you and I all we live in. It comes from this. It comes from the fact that the big companies want people, and these consultancies simply go and get these people and provide them to the larger corporations for a fee, of course. So for job security and as a beginner, I would say that this is a very, very good investment because, as I said, statistically it's very likely that your career is going to benefit from having experience in a large corporation, because it gives you branding, it gives you the potentially the highest pay that you can get, and you are very likely to be in an environment where you could stay at depending on the company, you could in theory stay at the same company for years and years and years until you decide to do something else, or you go into management, or you switch jobs and so forth. At the very least, it's going to set you up for a very secure career. So from the other perspective then, alright, you want to get rich. Now, I will state something, and that is that the language that you pick has very little to do with how much money you're going to make in programming. It is actually not that important. What is important is your career path, the path that you choose to go down, because in the beginning you're learning programming just to be able to program, right? But what are you going to do in 10 years? Now, your end goal is going to dictate more, it's going to have a bigger impact on how much money you actually make. If we look at the survey from Stack Overflow, it actually states that the highest salaries in the world are associated with F#. Among, I think Scala was up there as well, and a few others. But what's interesting about that is also that these are the languages that are very on the low end of popularity and adoption. Now, my guess is that this has significance, because when I'm saying this, you might think, oh yeah, that means that F# is the answer. Well, yes, but it kind of depends, because when the demand for a language is that low and the salary is that high, there is something that you can probably guess. The likelihood as to why this is a paid language is because of how hard it is to find people who can actually do it. Now, you can absolutely go in and pick a language like that and start working and getting really good at it, but you don't really have a guarantee whether or not you're going to find somewhere to actually do this. I mean, there might already, the demand for it might not be as high as it needs to be for you to consistently be able to get that job. What's even worse is that it's perhaps the highest salaries are just like that metric is just based on the average salary, and that doesn't really account for like a junior or a senior. I mean, a senior who knows F# and has been in the industry for quite a few years is probably going to be fairly well off, but maybe a junior won't. So it's a very tricky thing to say whether or not that is a good bet, yes or no. But if we're going to tie back into what I was saying, that it doesn't really matter all that much, we come back to that the career path is, in my world, more like the thing that has dictated that F# is the highest paid language. You see, the people who are most likely getting the money from these languages are the specialists, the people who have gone down the path of a IT specialist, and they most likely are working as consultants or something of this nature, where they get a really high salary. But that is also, as I said, high risk. The reason why it's high risk is because it can kind of go either way, and as you don't really have there's not that much security in going down a path where you pick a fairly unpopular language just for the money. Then I will argue that there are better strategies. Now, the two most common strategies for getting rich in IT is to, if you want to go on the risky end of things, you found your own startup, something like this, where the earning potential of a successful startup is probably the easiest way. It's the highest in all of IT. I mean, you look at Google and so forth. If you create a startup that becomes truly successful, you will most likely earn more money than you could possibly earn in any other way. But also, as you probably can guess, that's actually pretty hard. It's very tricky to make something successful, and odds are that you will crash and burn. Those are the odds are against you. Most startups actually fail or make some success, but never get to the sort of size that Google has. And the other, as I said, the other one is going down a specialist field, like being an extremely like a master of F#, a master of high-speed trading algorithms, things of this nature, where you will be paid an absurd amount of money just to be a consultant or something of this nature. But I would say that if I were to pick the safest and most sustainable way to get rich in IT, I would say that founding your own consultancy is probably the way to go. The way that you should do this is likely very similar to whatever the other companies are doing. Well, some of them at least, the ones that are the absolute most money focused. And basically what they do is that they have a founder of some sort. Like, you start out yourself as a consultant, you get a few good years under your belt, so you get some networks. Ideally, you should focus on the languages that the big companies are using, which, as I said, is C#, Java, and JavaScript. Focus on these languages because they are in the highest demand. Learn them well, learn the platforms and the different technologies that the big corporations are using, so you really know what's going on in their world. And when you have a few years, you start your own consultancy. Then you hire fairly junior profiles, developers who are at the junior end to mid-level, and you base your company around office culture. You try to sell that your workplace is a fun, engaging environment, and everybody's having fun together, and that you're going for this family feel or camaraderie feel that you push as much as possible, because what's going to happen then is that you can make the sell, then you can offer your employees lower salaries, and sometimes kind of fairly low salaries in comparison to what the industry norm is. You would be surprised how many developers are willing to go down in salary in just if you offer them like a free membership at a gym or a beer every Friday or something like that. I mean, that office culture thing is a big deal for a lot of developers. So if you have a cool company or something of this nature, you will actually attract quite a lot of developers, more so than the big corporations. And that's actually where the strength comes from. That's why the consultancies are attractive, because they can do this while the corporations cannot. And once you have that going, if you have maybe a few developers under in your company that are working directly towards the really large corporations, I'm pretty sure that you've left programming a long time ago and you're probably only focusing on acquiring new clients. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you want to make money in IT and get rich, it doesn't really matter all that much which language you pick. It has more to do with the career path that you choose. If you found a startup and you make a big success out of that company, that is going to be the biggest, it has the highest earning potential, but it's also high risk. You can go down the route of the specialist and become really, really good at like a COBOL or F# or something that some companies still are using, and because the scarcity of good developers within that specific profession, that field, is so, like, there's so few people, they will actually pay you a lot of money just because you're good at it, because they can't find anybody else. High-speed trading is another good pick there. And finally, the most stable and secure way to get rich is likely to found your own consultancy and basically try to hire people with less experience than you, pay them less and trade their lower salary for good office culture and give them some perks basically, and take it from there. That's basically how I think about it anyway. Have a great day.